Let's see. Let's see if it's better. Yeah, I'm back. Told you. Might as well come back quick. Turn off the light. Might as well come back pretty quick. Told you. Be back in 30 couple of seconds. Let's listen to the news. Let's watch Ashley Baumfield on Bach. Does that sound better? Or no? Yep.
Hi, everybody. It's Ashley Banfield, even though it doesn't sound like me. I know. This is day 3 with, I just keep calling it the crud. I don't know what it is. I actually feel okay.
She sounds sick.
I sound horrendous. And it's super hard to talk. I have to breathe extra hard. So I apologize up and down for the 3rd day of podcasts, which I call like Brenda Vaccaro, who I love, by the way, but also has this very deep and raspy voice. Anyway, if you can bear with me, I do have a lot to tell you about the double murder in Columbus, Ohio. Something happened today. I expected it. I didn't expect it this soon. And I sure as heck didn't expect the nugget that came out when an indictment came down on Dr. Michael McKee. I'm going to talk all about that in just a moment. And we're going to get really deep into a lot more of the aspects of this case and what's coming next. Because everybody has their idea of the path that a murder prosecution is going to take. But nobody knows it better than some of the people you're about
Sean
to
B,
hear from,
thanks.
because the grand jury has spoken. The grand jury in the murders of Spencer and Monique Tepe. 2.5 weeks after the Tepes were gunned down in their own home, a panel has now officially done it. They have indicted the suspect, Dr. Michael McKee. And along with the charges, which I'm going to get to in just a sec, the indictment
She sounds sick.
let slip a pretty tantalizing little detail we had not heard before, and I didn't expect to hear. The shooter used a silencer, or as the grand jurors put it, a muffler or a suppressor. Dr. McKee, who is Mo Tepe's first husband and a vascular surgeon from Illinois, he's charged tonight with now 4 counts of aggravated murder and a single count of burglary. And hold on, I did a double take. I thought it was a misprint. I thought it was a false report. 4 counts of aggravated murder. Hold it. He was originally charged with 2 counts of murder. And then they upgraded it and added 2 counts of aggravated murder. So is it really 4 ag murders, or is it 2 and 2? As it turns out, it is 100% 4 counts of aggravated murder, which is unique with 2 victims. But there's a good reason for it. You're going to hear why.
Yeah, it is going to be
And it
strange.
actually does make sense. If you have been counting the days, you will know that tomorrow it's going to be 1 full week since Dr. McKee was arrested in Rockford, Illinois. I'm recording this episode on January the 16th, and as I come to you tonight, McKee is still sitting in an Illinois jail cell, probably in the yellow scrubs that we saw him appear in court. His extradition and his return to Columbus is still TBA. I'm with you. I think it's weird. It's just a 6-hour drive that he allegedly made himself. So why is it taking more than a week? There's a lot of machinations that go on. the detectives down in Columbus, sometimes they have fugitive task force. They'll go get people. Sometimes they outsource it to companies that actually do these extraditions. And so that might be happening. But there's some logistics in trying
But
to iron out.
they give you a certain amount of time to go get a suspect.
And then Columbus and the authorities there. So I have a little news of my own that I want to share with you.
If you don't go get
tonight, and it's like really surprising to say this, but tonight was my very last night on my News Nation show. It's not a surprise because I knew, because I planned it, but it feels weird saying it because I've been in live TV for 38 years. Huh? Yes, 38 years of live television. And I made a huge decision, one that it did not come lightly. It took months to come to this decision, to leave the live television show and to leave TV as a live entity in general, because I want to focus more on you guys. I want to focus more on this podcast, on Drop Dead Serious. This has become such a passion of mine.
Oh, she was on live TV.
Like
she's on YouTube only.
It's just super authentic, right down to wearing a hoodie. And I'm going to be giving Drop Dead Serious my full attention now. So I think you can look forward to a lot more from me, not just in the nightly podcast, but also membership and benefits and extra product and extra information. Lots of stuff that I'm happy to share with you in the future as I start building this out as a full-time commitment. I love saying that. This is going to be my full-time commitment. So in honor of my final show at News Nation, my team assembled this all-star panel to join me to discuss the key developments in the Ohio case. So we had Mark Garagos, who you know is a criminal defense attorney, managing partner of Garagos and Garagos. We had Matt Murphy, former senior homicide prosecutor in the Orange County, California DA's office, and Jesse Weber, attorney and host of News Nation's brand new 11 o'clock show, Jesse Weber Live. It premieres on Monday. Please give him all your love. He's so good. He's going to be doing a lot of the content that I was doing at 10. So just check him out at 11.
Oh, Jesse Weber is taking over.
Before I get to this amazing conversation, and also why 4 aggravated murder charges for 2 victims, I also just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting this podcast. I would not have jumped ship.
I like Jesse Weber.
I couldn't do it without you. I also can't do it without my sponsors because now, like I said, this is my full-time attention. Wild Grain is one of those sponsors, and I want to ask you if you've checked out Wild Grain yet, because they are really, really good. It's the first bake from frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, artisanal pastries, fresh pastas. Everything bakes in 25 minutes or less. I've done it. It's amazing, and it makes the house smell great. What's even better is the ingredients they use are real. You can pronounce them. That's number 1 in my book. I'm super obsessed with their sourdough. I think it's really elite when it's cold outside, and I love the fact the boxes are fully customizable. There's really nothing like having an artisan bakery in your freezer to chase away the winter chills. Now's the best time to stay in and enjoy comforting homemade meals with Wild Grain. I highly recommend giving it a try. Right now, I'm offering our listeners $30 off your first box, plus free croissants for life when you go to wildgrain.com/Banfield to start your subscription.
Free what?
Come on, guys. $30
free croissants for life?
Free croissants for life. What's not to love? Wildgrain.com/Banfield. Don't forget, you can also use my promo code Banfield at checkout. Okay, back to the case. Here's my conversation with Mark Garagos, Matt Murphy, and Jesse Weber. Matt, I'm going to come out of the gate with you. 4 counts indicted by this grand jury. 4 aggravated counts, but 2 murders. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I know Mark.
It depends how much you like croissants.
It's just kind of weird, for lack of a better term. So what they're doing is they're proceeding on 2 different potential theories. The first 2 are what we would call P&D, or premeditation and deliberation. Then count 3 is the burglary by itself, and then counts 4 and 5 are the same murders but with a different aggravating factor where they.
You like croissants, Sean B?
Murders committed.
I like croissants, but not that much. That I want them for life.
Where Mark and I do most of our cases, that basically qualifies it as what's known as a special circumstance. So in the state of Ohio, they technically have a death penalty, but like California, there's a moratorium on it. But that would theoretically make him eligible for life without possibility of parole. So it's a weird way to do it, frankly. But I know Mark was also probably thinking, I can't wait to hear what Mark has to say about this. This was a super fast indictment. We went from, I mean, this is just light speed. He hasn't even been he hasn't even been extradited yet from Illinois, and they've already got an indictment waiting for him in the state of Ohio. So the next step, there'll be a bunch of pretrial motions. Actually, as we'll see the process go on, the next big step will be actual trial now that they've got an indictment in hand.
Oh.
So Garagos, jump in here, because when I heard quadruple aggravated murder, I sort of felt like the breath went out of any defense attorney who may be lined up to do this case. Is that, as scary as it sounds, are the two extra ag murders that have the burglary and insurance policy in case somehow a jury decides maybe it wasn't premeditated?
Well, actually, I think Matt is spot on that when you hear it, not only is it weird, but I think also that when you present this to lay people who are obviously by definition the jurors, it's a little bit confusing. It's a little kind of
but when you follow true crime, it's not confusing.
You would immediately assume that there were multiple or serial, and when it becomes that it's theories, I think that just opens up the defense to all kinds of mischief, frankly. Matt is right that it's like dangling in front of a defense lawyer just all kinds of things and talk about, okay, well, you couldn't prove this theory, so you did this theory, or you threw this out, you couldn't go, you follow up on this one, and why are you indicting, and why are you going to a grand jury, and why this rush to judgment? I actually think things like this, when you do it this way, end up backfiring on the prosecution.
So Jesse, you and I have been through a lot of trials together. Some of them are great and some of them are stinkers. And I often think that sometimes the litigators are checking their boxes and forgetting that everybody who's in the jury box is just some dude, right? We just need a story that we can wrap our heads around. And in this particular case, I'm seeing movement and timing and forensics. And I'm wondering, in your opinion, how important is it going to be for these prosecutors to put together a bedtime story for the jurors instead of a checkbox case?
So it's very important. Before I even get to that, Ashley, thank you so much for everything you've always done for my career. I love you. You're amazing. And thank you for having me on your last show. Okay, very important. Why?
He's a lawyer as well.
Story. Obviously, motive is
How can you be a lawyer and be on News Nation?
When you're trying to explain why this guy who is accused of this was divorced for so many years and then all of a sudden, what, snaps? I mean, they have to explain why he would have allegedly traveled 400 miles and killed them in the middle of the night. Remember, he's charged with aggravated murder. They elevated it to get to life in prison. That's prior calculation and design, that it was premeditated. So what are they going to have to show? They are going to have to show that travel. They are going to have to show he went into that house. They are going to have to show the circumstances of that killing. And there's still a lot we don't know, right? We don't have forensics. We don't have DNA, but they say they recovered a weapon that was tied to it. They now have the car. They have the surveillance footage. They now say that is him. So being able to tell
he travels state lines.
Story about why he would have done this when he hasn't said anything right now, I think that's going to be critical for the prosecution.
So Matt, when we listen to,
I'm surprised the federal government didn't pick this up, because he travels state lines.
And that is far from the story for a prosecutor. What in this particular case, given what we know, and it's not a lot, what worries the prosecutor most right now, this early on?
Boy, that's a great question, Ashley. I think that where my mind goes is, and I'm sure Jesse and Mark are thinking the same thing, I would love to see his Google searches and see what's in there. There isn't really a whole lot right now based on what's been released. This looks like a very strong case. The silencer was certainly new, or what we'd call a suppressor. But this has all the makings, at least on the surface. This guy's presumed innocent, of course. Mm-hmm. This has all the makings of one of those cases where you just got an obsessive ex. And we've all either had an obsessive ex. Mark and I have done these cases together in Southern California, where you got guys that just can't hear the word no. So it's going to be really interesting.
No means
me as a
no.
former prosecutor to hear what else they've got, what Google searches went on, where he got the suppressors, because those are very expensive, and in a lot of states like California, there's a complete ban on them. So this is going to be. There's a lot more evidence coming our way. You and I talked about this the other night, Ashley, and I think you were the first to get it out. This was a NIBIN hit, which I think is very interesting. So they've got, that's the National Ballistics Database, where they take expended shell casings from one crime scene and match them to known exemplars. So it sounds like they actually got the firearm here, I think, maybe, but they have certainly got expended shell casings from his previous residence. And that is incredibly powerful in front of a jury to link him to these murders.
To a weapon and to a silencer, you're right. So Mark, I mean, we're talking about a lot of the bad stuff that defense attorneys don't like to hear. We're talking about surveillance the police say they have, vehicle timelines the police say they have.
What time is
a
it?
Weapon and the silencer suppressor
Let me
that
check.
they allegedly have at this point. Can you see any realistic openings right now for a defense attorney? Again,
Oh, it's only
knowing what
10.
we
It's
know.
early.
Well, knowing what we know, actually, and I apologize for smiling when Matt was telling that story, I was thinking of one particular case that I'm sure he was referring to that we had against each other, if you want to talk about obsession. But putting that aside, yes, there are openings. I mean, the hit on the shell casings reminds me, I had another case, not similar, but an instrumentality found at the scene. I've actually had two in murder cases. One was a bottle with a fingerprint. Another was a mattress and a bed frame with a fingerprint. We were able to show in both cases, and won dismissals in both murder cases, that that was just from somebody else. And a good investigator in both cases, separate guys, actually found that out. So I'm not so sure that that's as compelling as it sounds, at least when you frame it the way the prosecutors do. You don't know who brought that casing to the scene. You don't know what the circumstances were of the exemplars and everything else. There's always a lot more to it. I mean, remember, the best day in a lot of these circumstantial evidence cases for the prosecutor is the day they announce it, which is one of the reasons they always want to get a gag order on the defense after that.
I think the best day is when they have openings before the defense goes up and gives their opening. Jesse, speaking of the narrative, legally, it is very smart to exercise your right to remain silent, which this defendant did eventually when he was in cuffs. But then when it comes to the media, it makes you look so guilty. And there is a jury pool out there somewhere wanting to know anything more about this. I know what you're going to say, but I want to know why you're going to say it. He should never say another damn word. Why?
Because it could be used against him. I mean, the Timothy Busfield case this week was the complete opposite, right? Different circumstances, different charges, but he was fighting a case in the court of public opinion and the court of law. This is somebody who's a private citizen. He has not said one word. I think that's very wise. Allow his attorney to do the talking. And right now, he doesn't have to prove anything. What they are going to try to do is dismantle the prosecution's case any which way they can. Any which way. The car evidence, the ballistic evidence, the surveillance footage. Go that route. If he says anything, it could potentially be used against him. And if it's only his choice, if he ever decides to take the stand. So right now, there's really nothing he should say or could say that I think would help him.
Yep.
Jesse Weber, Mark Garagos, Matt Murphy. My final
I will stay
goodbye to you,
quiet.
News Nation. I can't thank you enough for being on this program tonight and for being so smart and helpful all the time. And Jesse, best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
It's a real honor, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
for bringing us in. Yeah.
So clearly we are only at the beginning of this case in Ohio. I think we are basically in the same situation with wondering again, why? That's where Brian Koberger left us, and we'll never get that answer. I really don't think we will. Why? Why would you do something like this? Why would you choose?
'Cause
those
he's
poor
evil.
innocent kids. How could you actually perpetrate that crime? Will we get answers in this case?
Because he's
Dr. McKee,
evil.
he's innocent until proven guilty. Things don't look good for him right now, that's for sure. And of course, the answer would be, why so many years later? What on earth got into you, if in fact you did it?
Because he's an evil son of a bitch. That's why he did it. If he wasn't evil, he would have never done it. But please like and subscribe. Let's see what's going on in the news today with David Mayor.
Tonight, breaking news. Back-to-back winter storms sweeping through the east with an Arctic blast following close behind. President Trump threatens America's allies who oppose his plans for Greenland, and Minnesota mobilizing its National Guard as tensions rise. First winter roaring back to the eastern half of the country. More than 50 million Americans on alert. A 1-2 punch dumping snow from the Carolinas to New England. Up to 6 inches possible along parts of the I-95 corridor by tomorrow. And what's in store for the week ahead? Our weather team tracking it all. President Trump threatens more tariffs on American allies, including the UK, France, and Germany, all who have sent troops to Greenland, further testing the strength of the NATO alliance as protesters take to the streets in opposition to an American takeover, and a group of U.S. senators traveling to Denmark. Officials in Minnesota appealing for calm. The governor mobilizing the National Guard as protesters return to the streets hours after
Trump is crazy.
Placed limits on what immigration agents can do to peaceful demonstrators. Matt Rivers reporting from Minneapolis. The new warning from the FAA to airlines operating in parts of Latin America, telling pilots to exercise caution because of increased military activity in the region. The measles outbreak in South Carolina expands, more than 100 new cases in the past few days. New details in the arrest of actor Timothy Busfield, facing child sex abuse charges in New Mexico. His lawyers pushing back what they're saying about the parents of one of his alleged victims. NASA rolls into a new era, taking one small step towards a return to the moon, more than 53 years in the making. How the popularity of weight loss drugs like Ozempic might save airlines money. And America Strong, the teen who turned his passion for helping others into a long-term mission. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News.
I didn't know that was in New York.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday. I'm Whit Johnson. We begin tonight with back-to-back winter storms hitting the East Coast with snow, followed by frigid temperatures for the upcoming week. More than 55 million Americans under winter weather alerts. This car in St. Louis, Missouri, careening out of control and crashing into a guardrail after an inch of snow. In the Northeast, planes at Newark Airport, New Jersey, de-iced after a sudden snowfall. Firefighters in Buffalo, New York, braving 12-degree temperatures to put out this church fire, the building now a block of ice. And now the East staring down another round of frigid weather, similar to the one last week that caused stunned iguanas to fall from trees in Florida. We have team coverage tonight. Our weather team standing by with the
iguanas died in Florida. That's crazy.
Leads us off here in New York.
Tonight, over 50 million across the country under weather alerts. Americans digging out from a winter deluge and battling treacherous roads as a second storm system looms on the horizon. This sedan in St. Louis, Missouri, heading eastbound on Highway 40, careening out of control and crashing into this guardrail after an inch of snow fell rapidly this morning in the Show Me state. First responders also sliding on the highway as they approached the scene. Drivers battling those frosty conditions across the storm zone. That snow then moving into the East Coast. In the Northeast, planes at Newark Airport in New Jersey de-iced after the sudden snowfall. Scenes like what we're seeing here today in New York popping up across the Northeast. This winter front stretching hundreds of miles all the way into the south. And across the Midwest, that same system bringing chilling temperatures ahead of the Bears-Rams playoff football game tomorrow.
It's going to be a cold weekend.
Yeah,
Tomorrow
very
for
cold.
The Bears game.
Temps expected to be as low as 6 degrees during kickoff.
Wow.
And Whit, if that wasn't enough, the East could be seeing even more snow as another storm is expected as we head into Sunday. Whit?
Oh boy.
Caution. Thanks so much. Let's get right to meteorologist Jeff Smith from our New York station WABC. And Jeff, another storm threat targeting the East Coast.
More snow, guys.
Yeah, Whit, round 2 will bring snow to places that don't typically see it. We're talking places like Macon, Georgia, under a winter storm warning into the day tomorrow, upwards of 3 inches of snow. I-95 corridor, millions of people from Philly up to New York City and to parts of New England, upwards of 3 or 4 inches of snow. Let's track it for you. And there could be snowfall all the way down to the Florida Panhandle, at least flakes flying in the air in those places into tomorrow morning. It all shifts
Snow in Florida, that's crazy.
Evening hours tomorrow, eventually up into parts of New England. That could be impacting that Patriots game in Foxborough, Massachusetts. Behind that storm, Arctic air blowing across the warmer waters of the Great Lakes, upwards of 20 inches of snow off of Lakes Ontario and Erie. And that Arctic air really means business. Wind chills well below.
You heard Sean B. Florida's getting some snow.
Ooh, a tough week ahead. Jeff Smith, we appreciate it. Now to President Trump's new strategy for Greenland, threatening some NATO allies with a 10% tariff. This as thousands gathered in Denmark to support the Arctic territory, waving flags and holding up signs reading, "Hands off Greenland." And a group of U.S. lawmakers traveling to Denmark showing their support for the American ally. Here's ABC's senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang.
Tonight, President Trump issuing a new threat to our European to oppose a U.S. takeover of Greenland. Trump posting on Truth Social that 8 of our NATO allies, including Denmark, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, will face 10% tariffs starting on February 1st, adding that those tariffs will jump to 25% in June until a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. For weeks, Trump has been escalating his threats, saying the U.S. will have Greenland one way or another, refusing to rule out the use of military force. In response, those countries have sent small groups of military forces to the island nation, backing our NATO ally Denmark, which has long controlled Greenland. It comes as thousands march through the streets of Copenhagen today in protest, many waving Greenland's flag, holding signs that read, "Make America Smart Again" and "Hands Off."
I'm afraid that he will destroy the NATO alliance. So we're here to stand with the Greenlanders.
Trump is criticizing those countries for, quote, playing this very dangerous game and putting a level of risk in play that is not tenable or sustainable. This weekend, a bipartisan group of senators traveling in Denmark. Do the officials in Denmark and Greenland take President Trump's threats seriously?
Very seriously. In fact, they're alarmed. Danish political leaders are preparing for the possibility that the United States, instead of being a close and trusted ally, might become an adversary, and they're gravely concerned.
And where President Trump insists that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security, citing Chinese and Russian activity, but many lawmakers and experts say there's no immediate threat, pointing out the U.S. already has the ability to increase their military presence on the island through a long-standing treaty. Whit?
All right, Selena Wang for us tonight. Now to the unrest in Minneapolis. Anti-immigration protesters clashing with another group of demonstrators.
Trump is an
led by
idiot,
a
that's what he
January
is.
6th rioter pardoned by President Trump. This comes after 2 shootings, 1 deadly, involving immigration agents in that city. The National Guard on standby if the situation escalates. ABC's Matt Rivers on the scene in Minneapolis tonight.
Tonight, growing concerns over the focus of the federal investigation into the shooting of Renee Good by an ICE officer in Minnesota. Multiple officials telling ABC News at least 6 federal prosecutors in Minnesota have resigned over concerns that the federal probe of the death of the 37-year-old mother of 3 is focused less on the actions of the shooter, ICE officer Jonathan Ross, and more on Good, her widow, and her possible ties to activist groups.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want now?
Tensions now mounting in the city after 10 days of protests, with more demonstrations.
That's crazy.
And despite frigid conditions on Saturday, hundreds of anti-ICE protesters surrounding City Hall, greatly outnumbering a small pro-ICE rally organized by a conservative influencer, the scene quickly spilling out of control.
So what's happening right now is that the organizers of this rally, who are in the middle of that scrum right there, they're being forced out of the City Hall area, drowned out by hundreds of people who are anti this ICE deployment in the city. The message to these organizers, get out.
The Minnesota National Guard now staged and standing by, but not yet deployed to city streets. President Trump, who had threatened to use the Insurrection Act to send in federal troops, now walking that back.
If I needed it, I'd use it. I don't think there's any reason right now to use it. But if I needed it, I'd use it. It's very powerful.
A federal judge in Minnesota also temporarily barring ICE officers from arresting or detaining peaceful protesters, quote, in retaliation for their protected conduct. The order also prohibits federal agents from stopping drivers or other observers of law enforcement activities without a reasonable suspicion of obstruction. Federal officials have said they only deploy those methods when protests aren't peaceful, but the scrutiny spreading to Minnesota politicians too. Multiple officials telling ABC News that Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz are now also under federal investigation for allegedly obstructing law enforcement activities in the state. Fry responding on social media, calling it an obvious attempt to intimidate me for standing up for Minneapolis against the chaos and danger this administration has brought to our streets. Walz slamming the administration and calling the federal investigation of Good's shooting into question, saying weaponizing the justice system and threatening political opponents is a dangerous authoritarian tactic. The only person not being investigated for the shooting of Renee Good is the federal agent who shot her.
Yep.
With the Trump administration continues to say that the agent's actions were justified and that there is, quote, no basis for a criminal civil rights investigation. With
At Rivers, our thanks to you tonight. And tune into This Week tomorrow morning. Jonathan Karl interviews Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry as protests intensify in his city over ICE tactics. Next tonight, the FAA's warning to American pilots and airlines, urging them to exercise caution when flying over parts of the Pacific Ocean near Latin America. Let's bring in ABC's Alex Brochet. And Alex, you're learning more about what's behind this warning.
That's right, Whit. The FAA warning U.S. airlines to, quote, exercise caution when flying over the Eastern Pacific and parts of Central and South America due to, quote, military activities and possible GPS interference. Last month, you might remember
crazy.
a JetBlue flight from Curacao had to take evasive action to avoid colliding with a U.S. Air Force refueling tanker. America's military presence has ramped up in the region over the past several months as we carry out strikes against alleged drug boats there. It also follows the massive January 3rd military strike in Caracas that led to the capture of Nicolas Maduro and his wife. And just last week, President Trump suggested that the U.S. could target drug cartels in Mexico with land strikes. And while this notice doesn't signal anything immediate, it's actually fairly routine for regions dealing with conflict. Tonight, Southwest telling ABC News that it remains in close contact with the U.S. government on any activities in the region, and United says it is monitoring the situation. Whit?
Okay, Alex, thank you. Now to the dangerous measles outbreak in South Carolina. Cases
I don't know
doubling
there was a
there in
measles
week.
outbreak.
The state now has more than 500 cases, and authorities expect that number to grow. Here's ABC's Morgan Norwood.
Tonight, the country's largest measles outbreak growing at an alarming speed. Health leaders in South Carolina report 124 cases in just the
That's
past
a lot.
few days, bringing the total to 558.
We have right now the largest outbreak in the U.S., and it's going to get worse before it gets better.
The outbreak building for months, the epicenter in rural Spartanburg County, with more than 500 people in the state now under quarantine. Measles is one of the most contagious viruses in the world, and according to the CDC, one case can infect 9 out of 10 people nearby if they're not protected. It lingers in the air for up to 2 hours after an infected person leaves the room. And unvaccinated children make up the vast majority of cases, according to South Carolina state data. More than 80% had not received the MMR vaccine. The surge comes after a troubling year nationwide, 2025 marking the highest number of measles cases since 1992. With
That's a lot.
2,242 infections across 44 states, according to the CDC. At least 3 people died last year, all unvaccinated.
That's a lot.
Measles death in the U.S. in a decade.
The majority of cases in 2025 were in children and teens, and over 90% of cases were in those who were unvaccinated.
And tonight, 9 states across the country have active measles cases.
If you are not vaccinated and you've been exposed, it may be a good idea to get one shot at the MMR vaccine also to give you some protection. The MMR vaccine is now available in clinics, in doctor's office, even in pharmacies in your area.
And with the state of South Carolina is expanding access to the vaccine tonight in response to that outbreak, they stress it is the most effective way to prevent future spread and serious illness. Whit?
Morgan Norwood, thanks so much. New details in the child sex abuse charges against actor and director Timothy Busfield. He's now facing multiple allegations, but his legal team saying in court documents that a studio investigation undermines the state's case. Let's bring in ABC's Jacqueline Lee, and Jacqueline, Busfield's attorney is arguing he should be released from jail now.
Absolutely, Whit. So Timothy Busfield's attorneys argue the actor should be released from jail for lack of genuine evidence that he is dangerous. Their 237-page court filing says the parents of the alleged victims have been found liable for fraud and dishonesty, respectively, in the past. According to court documents, Busfield told investigators their claims allegedly coming after their twins lost their role on the TV show The Cleaning Lady, adding the mother allegedly saying to the show's lead actor that she would get her revenge against Tim Busfield. Busfield's attorneys included 75 letters of support. Busfield has not entered a plea but denies all allegations. He is facing up to 15 years behind bars if convicted.
Wow, 15 years is a long time.
Thank you. Now to the official countdown to the launch of Artemis 2, the rocket and spacecraft moving to the launch pad today. It's set to transport 4 astronauts on a historic journey, the first crewed mission around the moon in more than 50 years. That launch could happen as soon as February 6th. Here's ABC's Andrew Dimber.
Tonight, the next chapter in space exploration begins. NASA's Artemis 2 rocket rolling out at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, inching mankind closer to a lunar return. This mission isn't about a landing, but proving the system can and will one day put humans back on the lunar surface for the first time in more than 50 years. 4 astronauts, Reed Weissman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen, are now in the final stages of training that will take them on a journey thousands of miles beyond Earth, slingshotting around the moon and back. NASA says the launch window could open as early as February. Until then, the crew is running through emergency simulations, spacecraft systems checks, and long-duration mission drills, preparing for every possible scenario in deep space. And tonight, anticipation is mounting.
We're continuing on with our Artemis 2 preparation campaign. I think we've held schedule
Good luck.
getting to roll out today. So we'll get out there, we'll put it through its motions, we'll get through wet dress.
And this is just the beginning. NASA hopes this mission not only sets the stage for a return to the moon, but eventually to Mars.
A lot of excitement
To
about that.
Mars. I would like to go to Mars.
Now to a historic day in Virginia. Democrat Abigail Spanberger sworn into office as the state's first female governor. She'll be referred to as Madam Governor or Her Excellency. It also marks a new chapter as Democrats pull the levers of power in Virginia, while Republican President Donald Trump sits in the White House next door. There is much more ahead on World News Tonight this Saturday. How the popularity of weight loss drugs could turn into savings for airlines, and the terrifying explosion in a rural Minnesota community that left hundreds of homes out in the cold.
Wow.
Next night, the Air Force Academy is suspending its men's basketball coach indefinitely, pending an investigation into his treatment of athletes. Coach Joe Scott has led the team for 6 years. Air Force has 3 wins and 14 losses this season. Assistant coach John Jordan will take over for now. The Academy did not release any further details, Scott saying he is cooperating with the investigation. Authorities in rural Minnesota are investigating a gas line explosion north of Duluth. Dramatic images show the massive fire burning. No one was hurt and no homes were damaged.
That's good. No one's hurt.
Restore gas to hundreds of homes now. Authorities say they do not suspect foul play. When we come back, those popular weight loss drugs and how they might be saving the airlines fuel costs.
How? Because people will lose weight.
To the index now, new research suggests that the prevalence of people losing weight with GLP-1 drugs may decrease fuel costs for airlines. The global analysis firm Jefferies found that if society becomes 10% slimmer, airlines' fuel costs could drop 1.5%. That's because with a lighter weight load, the engines won't have to work as hard. When we come back, America Strong and the teenager on a mission doing everything he can to help those in need. Finally tonight, America Strong.
That's kind of fucked up.
Made helping others.
So because somebody's fat, they save more money on fuel. That's kind of fucked up. Alright guys, I'll be back later. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Sean B. Thank you, everybody.